All right, so today I'm delighted to welcome Kaylee Cleffel onto the show. Kaylee is an ACSM certified personal trainer and inclusive exercise specialist, and she's also a member of our physical therapy grad school class. So, class of 2022, along with me. So, we've spent a lot of time together in classes and labs over the past 4 years already. Man, time flies. For more on Kaylee, you can check out her Instagram at Kaylee underscore Cleffel. And today we're really diving into exercise and physical activity and why it's so good. So last week when I had John on the show, we talked a lot about the negative side of sedentary behavior, sitting around on the couch, watching TV, not really doing anything, whatever. Today we're talking about the other end. So, like I said, all the exercise. So to start, I just want to give two quick definitions that we're going to be talking a lot about today. The first is physical activity, and physical activity is any bodily movement that you do. So, like vacuuming, that results in increased energy expenditure. So, again, like vacuuming, doing stuff around the house, that sort of thing. On the other hand, exercise, which we're also going to talk a lot about, is a type of physical activity. And it's basically just planned, structured, repetitive physical activity that you're doing with the intent of improving something, whether that be muscular strength, muscular endurance, power, whatever. So we're going to use those two terms a lot today. I just wanted to set the stage for that, just to let you know that there's a little difference between the two. And why am I bringing you this information now? Well, with COVID-19, a lot of us are still quarantined, stuck at home. And it looks like that's going to continue for at least a few more weeks. And, exercise is good. Exercise is one of the best things you can do for your body. So, in a time where we're met with stress, where we're met with, a health crisis, why not do the good thing for your body? And next, I'm going to introduce Kaylee, and we're going to dive in here. Um, so, we're going to start by talking about some different statistics relating to exercise. So, Kaylee, I know we talked a lot about physical activity guidelines and how much people should be getting on a weekly basis. Um,
Yep.
what are those guidelines that you've gotten from the ACSM, and how often do you see people achieving them, or just in general, how many people don't achieve them?
So the ACSM guidelines basically want you to hit about 30 minutes of aerobic exercise a day, putting you at, well, that would be 5 days a week. So that would put you at 150 minutes per week. Personally, based on my clinical experience and just working as a trainer, I've noticed that this is really hard to attain for some people. Some people say they don't have the time to work out, and some people just simply say they just don't feel like working out. So most of the time, people aren't hitting those expected amounts of exercise per week.
Right. And I think the CDC even said less than 1 in 4 Americans meet both the aerobic and the resistance
Mm-hmm.
guidelines. And I think resistance guidelines, it's just saying, you go and lift weights or do calisthenics or some kind of resistance exercise twice a week.
Yep.
That's not too much. And it's alarming that people struggle to hit these goals, in normal times. And I can only imagine what the impact of COVID is having on, the levels of physical activity people are having now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm worried about the whole COVID situation, as people are currently sedentary, and then we've learned in class numerous times that sedentary activity can further progress things to make their situation even worse. And so
Hmm.
I'm wondering what's going to happen to someone who's diagnosed with this virus, who was already sedentary and then comes home and continues that activity. It's going to completely send them into a downward spiral.
No, definitely. And, as we talked about last week in episode 3 there, a lack of activity is, it's a leading risk factor for death. And it's a cause of, so many different chronic diseases, obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, all these
Mm-hmm.
terrible things there. And it's crazy that, and like I said in the intro, physical activity is what we're talking about here that's providing these benefits. And when we say guidelines for aerobic physical activity, that could literally just mean like vacuuming for 30 minutes for some people.
Yep.
Um,
And I think that society struggles with understanding that, because they automatically assume that getting physical activity, having to hit the gym and lift some weights or get on a treadmill, but a lot of it can incorporate just simple lifestyle changes, like you said, like just vacuuming, or parking further away from where, from the store. And it's just little things like that that people don't realize can add to their amount of physical activity in a day.
Right. And you brought up a great point there with just like parking further away. I know currently, it's not like people are going to the movie theater or anything like that, going out shopping. But, when all of this is over and life resumes, I mean, you don't have to park right up, close to the door to go into like Target or the movie theater. Like you can park further away and probably get, at least a 5-minute walk going in and a 5-minute walk coming out. And, there's 10 of your 30 minutes.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to do it all in one shot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I know for me personally, I've been loving kettlebell swings during quarantine so far. And I'll break up my study time with
Mm-hmm.
either stretching or like 20 to 30 kettlebell swings. Have you been doing anything like that, or is there anything that's really been sticking for you?
Yes, I've been trying to break up my sitting at my desk every hour. And ideally I would like to do it every half hour, but when times get stressful, I limit it to up to an hour. But I try to break all that up by doing some kind of stretch, some kind of mini core workout, something to just keep moving. And that personally has allowed me to focus even more too. And there comes in the psychological benefits of exercise too, is breaking up that sedentary activity can make things so much easier for you
Right.
psychologically.
And that psychological aspect right now is so key because I know for people like us, having graduate school level classes at home on top of all this is very stressful. But I can only imagine what
Mm-hmm.
other people are going through when you're thinking about things like, loss of a job or, in some cases, loss of a family member. Like this is
Right.
definitely taxing on the mental health, without a doubt.
Right. And personally for me, I've just noticed that if I am feeling any kind of struggle mentally, that exercise is my coping mechanism, and it has proven to me that I feel better anytime that I'm physically exerting myself, because it just poses so many benefits for me personally. And so when I'm in kind of a funk, like a lot of these people are feeling given our circumstances right now, it really changes things for me. And I also think that society doesn't realize that either, is just getting up and moving has tremendous
Right.
benefits.
No, agreed. And one of the things I've noticed is when I don't work out, I tend to eat more. And exercise kind of helps me
Mm-hmm.
curb like my cravings a little bit. Um, and I think that's something that we could really see helping a lot of people right now. There's been some studies that show, currently, before all this was going on, the rate of overweight and obese adults in America was about 70%. And the models they have, because I know everyone's talking about models and curves right now, showed that
Hmm.
we would hit 100% of Americans being overweight or obese by the year 2048, which, that's less than 30 years away. And that's kind of scary to me.
Right. Yes, it's very scary.
So I'm hoping, as we're flattening one curve, we can also look at other models here and see if we can flatten them as
Hmm.
well. Um,
Yep.
so we've kind of alluded to the fact that, exercise is good, but I don't think we've really talked about, why exercise is good. So let's start with, cardiovascular system, because a lot of people struggle with cardiovascular disease. So what are some of the benefits that you've seen as far as the cardiovascular system goes from exercise?
Which
Mm-hmm.
is basically your max amount of oxygen consumption. So, in simple terms, is just how much you really can do aerobically. So that helps to improve that, and also we're seeing a lot of cases with type 2 diabetes, and that causes so many issues beyond just issues with the pancreas and insulin. It also has issues with the cardiovascular and pulmonary system. So
You see a lot more talk about, reversing type 2 diabetes, which is good. I know Sami Inkinen, his company Verta Health is, focused primarily on reversing type 2 diabetes, and they're a medical based company. I think they do like a whole lifestyle consult though on diet, exercise, everything. So
yeah.
it's good to see we're starting to reverse that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then
Yep.
um, we also notice, kind of taking things a step further there, we talk about diabetes, and diabetes tends to correlate a lot with other diseases like obesity, which is, again, another chronic disease. And, obesity has its own battery of risks as well, whether you think of the inflammation levels you see in the body and how that impacts, your immune response again, but also on, the muscular system. We think about our muscles, and with aging, we have what's called sarcopenia, which is just losing skeletal muscle with age. And, if you're struggling with obesity and you've got a higher percentage of fat than you do muscle tissue, that you have less of a reserve, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So with aging, you're going to lose muscle mass. But if you have less muscle mass and more fat tissue to begin with, then you've got, less left in the tank, so to speak. A little more with the muscular system there. Um, Exercise is good for your joints. It's good for your muscle function. Just getting up and moving. You're going to see an increase production of synovial fluid in the joints, which is like the joint equivalent of WD 40. You're going to see increased bone density, which, we know firsthand how prevalent osteoporosis and osteopenia is. Um, and we also see an increased independence level in, our patients, whether it be from the physical therapy sense of thing or the personal training sense of things. Speaking of training, I know you have the
Mm-hmm.
inclusive exercise specialist certification. So how have some of the clients you've worked with in that population kind of seen gains, so to speak, in their muscular functioning and just overall quality from exercise?
Mm-hmm. Primarily, I've been getting a lot of individuals with osteoporosis. So that kind of ties in with what you were saying earlier. And again, this really helps with their bone density and prevents that weakening and frailty that's going to be coming from osteoporosis. And so we do a lot of extension-based activities to help with that. And they've noticed they feel stronger. They just feel physically better when they're, promoting or doing resistance training, some aerobic training, and they just overall just feel
Right. And
stronger
I
and
mean, that's what
physically
we want.
better.
So yeah, and the
Mm-hmm.
primary means for all this is this law called Wolff's Law, where basically your bones and to a certain extent your soft tissues, like your muscles, are going to adapt to the stress that you put on them. So, if you're someone who's a runner and you run like 50, 60 miles a week over and over and over again, then you're going to see more endurance muscle fibers. Whereas if you're someone who's, doing a lot of power Olympic type lifting, you're going to see more explosive type muscle fibers. But the same is true for bones in this case, is the more you load them, so the more weight bearing you do, axial loading to a certain extent, the more bone density and bone growth you see. I'm curious too, we haven't really talked much about our clinical experiences because we've spent, I can't even remember how many weeks in physical therapy clinics. So have you seen anything in PT clinics that kind of carries over to this as well?
Ties in a little bit with the Wolff's Law and the whole use it or lose it principle. So for people who don't know, the use it or lose it principle ties in with Wolff's Law in that if you're not posing your body with the stresses that exercise promotes, you're going to lose those things. So for instance, if you're not doing a lot of resistance training, you're going to start losing bone density because your body just thinks it doesn't need this bone density, because why do we need it if we're not putting that stress on the body? And so I've noticed a lot with patients, because I've had a lot of acute care experience, and so we have a lot of patients that are at home a lot and they don't do a lot of physical activity, and then they come in the hospital and they're sedentary for days, weeks, sometimes months, depending on the severity of their condition. And this is where that use it or lose it comes in, and that their body just almost deteriorates from not doing any kind of physical activity, and so they feel a lot weaker and fatigued and
Right,
just
right.
not feeling
Um,
themselves.
and I mean, you bring up a big point there with just, the fatigue and the weakness that sets in from not doing anything, because I know a lot of people say, they feel tired. They feel like, they're just ready for bed, but they haven't done anything today. And they always kind of wonder why that is. Um, and it just makes sense, if you're not doing anything for a prolonged period of time and your body's starting to break itself down because it's like, hey, we don't need, this much muscle because we're not going to use it. Hey everyone, I want to interrupt this show real quick. If you like what I've been doing on my podcast, on my Instagram channel, all that sort of thing, please do me a favor and subscribe to this podcast, whether it be on Google or Spotify or whatever you're listening on, and share this podcast or my Instagram channel, or both if you're feeling really kind, with someone you know who could benefit from the information I've been sharing lately. So, cognitive and basically our neuro system in general. So since, exercise helps improve our cardiovascular function and our muscular functioning, we're going to see improvement in our nerve functioning and, again, our cognitive functioning. And I know you kind of touched on this already there. You were saying that in general, you just kind of feel better when you're exercising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's super relevant right now for people stuck inside due to this pandemic, because we've seen a lot of rates increase for referrals to mental health professionals because people are feeling depressed and just down and anxious about our current situation. And so exercise in itself is going to help individuals feel better when they're stuck at home, and it's going to help them have a clearer mind and just overall just improve their mental well-being.
Right. And yeah, you definitely hit the nail right on the head there when you talk
Yeah.
about the relevance right now. That's key. And we use exercise as or it's been researched to be a possible treatment for things like depression, which again, as you said, we see those rates continue to go up and up right now, and whether that be from the health crisis or the economic crisis or both. It's just nice to know that there are things that we can be doing on a daily basis to help prevent that from happening. And like we said, it doesn't have to be formal exercise. Like you don't need like a weight set and a squat rack and all these different things. You don't need like a row machine, elliptical, treadmill. You don't need any like gym equipment, so to speak, in order to be active. And that's one point I feel like we just keep driving home is you know I keep going back to vacuuming, and now everyone's going to be cleaning their houses for the
Yeah.
next 3-4 weeks here. But just do something.
Right. And just breaking up that sedentary activity. Rule of thumb for me is if I really need to be sitting down for long periods of time, I'm breaking up that sedentary activity every hour. So if someone can just be reminded to just get up and do something for 5-10 minutes on every hour of the day, it will make a tremendous amount of difference.
Right. No, that's a good point. Just get up and move. um I've been using a concept that I like to call greasing the groove as well. Kind of like you said there, just every hour doing something. But I incorporate that with something that I want to get better at. So maybe I struggle with push-ups, or maybe my squat form sucks. I'll do 20 push-ups or 30 body weight squats, every hour that I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm working 9 to 5, and then I put in an extra hour or two at night studying or something like that, then there's 20 push-ups times 10 hours. There's an extra 200 push-ups I just did across the day. um,
Exactly.
and I found that that's a great alternative to resistance exercise. Like if you don't have a bar and a bench at home and you can't bench press, if you're doing forget 20, do 50. If you do 500 push-ups across your day, like you're still going to see gains in your chest and your shoulders and your triceps and all the muscles that the push-up works.
Exactly. We just have to be clever with what we have right now. And a lot of people don't have a lot of equipment. So body weight is the go-to right now. And that doesn't mean you're going to make any less gains.
Right. And even just kind of playing with the variables a little bit. So, don't just start with a push up. You could do an incline push up. So put your hands on your couch. Or you could do a decline push up and put your feet on the couch and your hands on the floor. You could speed it up or slow it down. Try going fast one rep and slow the next. There's so many ways to kind of modify things
Exactly.
for the current situation. Are there any other little like modifications or tweaks that you've been using for body weight exercises?
For me, mostly I've mainly been weight, but also incorporating more isometrics to it. So even if I have a little amount of weight, I will be holding at that mid joint angle and basically fatiguing that muscle just as much as I would if I'm adding weight on. So more so doing a lot of pauses with my exercises and holding them.
Right. So just kind of increasing that mechanical tension and making each
Mm-hmm.
rep as hard as possible. I like that.
Yep.
Um, and I mean, the other thing too is like, you know, obviously some people live pretty close to grocery stores. I know some people live, a couple miles away. And if you can get delivery, that's great. But, if you're just trying to get like, a bag or two of groceries, you could always just ride your bike down, pick it up, and
Mm-hmm.
ride back. Like, you're not going to come into contact with other people, on your bike ride, most likely.
Exactly. Yeah, my recommendation right now is just to get outside, and I've also been trying to do that as well. Is if it's nice out or if it's not raining, then I'm outside because it's still social distancing as long as you're staying a decent amount of away from people, and if there are people around, then throwing on a mask, but just getting outside and you're just going to feel better and you're going to be moving around and getting some fresh air, and it's going to be so much better than being pent up inside.
Right. And I think, that kind of takes us into another big theme here is just like, even though it feels like we might not have control in this current situation, we still have tons of control. We can control how we go about our days to a certain extent. Do we get up and then spend the day on the couch, or do we get up and make the best of what we have? And, do we get up and, try and approach things with a positive mindset, positive attitude, or do we just kind of tap out mentally?
Right.
And, you know, we've kind of hinted to exercise and the mental benefits and the endocrine benefits already. But I mean, exercise increases what we call like your feel good hormones. You see that epinephrine and norepinephrine, so the catecholamine response. You see the neurotransmitter releases like dopamine. You see all these really good things going on when you get into the biochemistry of just doing things.
Exactly. And also, this is a little off topic, but it just made me think of it. So, being a trainer in a gym, I've noticed a lot of people reaching out to me because they're scared to work out on their own, and they're not comfortable being alone. Like they just feel intimidated in a gym or being out in public trying to exercise. And I think now is the perfect time to take advantage of being stuck inside and not around a lot of people, because you can boost that confidence. You're getting that experience of exercise on your own with no one watching, and hopefully it'll motivate you to get into a gym or get outside and go for a run and not feel so intimidated by people around
No,
you.
that's a very good point. You know, right now you're in a judgment-free zone at home, and you
Yeah.
know, ideally when you go to the gym, it's also a judgment-free zone. But if you're struggling with what to do, if you're like, I did what Dan said. I, vacuumed the whole house 5 times this week. What's next? I know I've been posting a lot of different like home workout type things, and I know you've been doing the same thing there, whether it be,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram stories or through what we've started at our college there, this initiative to bring, by students for students, like home workout programs. Um, just tap into these resources because, Kaylee's amazing at what she does. And, it's free to follow Kaylee on Instagram, like tap into this
Mm-hmm.
resource here.
Yep. And also, just an update with that is I'm creating a separate Instagram to start posting mainly fitness motivation stuff for people to take advantage of. So that will be K Kleffel, so KKLEFFEL fitness, and that's my Instagram. That should be coming up shortly, but keep an eye on it.
Love to hear that. That's great stuff. And while we're on the topic of Instagram, I'm not here to kind of like go after these like fitfluencers who promote things like the slimming tea or like, putting a needle in your right butt cheek or anything like that. But like, just, be mindful of who you follow. Like when you see someone like Kaylee, or you see someone like John, or maybe I guess I'll throw myself in there. I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
But like, people with certifications, people who are, a living example of what they're preaching. These are the kinds of things you want to look for. You don't want to look for someone who's, crushing like, a whole 12 pack of donuts and they still have 3% body fat. Like that's not natural. That's not how the human
Nope.
body works. So try and find someone, if it's not me, if it's not John or Kaylee or whoever, just find someone that you can at least relate to, just to make it easier for yourself.
Exactly.
And obviously, if you like what we're doing, then feel free to reach out, whether it's an Instagram message or you can leave a comment on the show, and I'll get you in touch with whoever. If you want to email, visit the website, whatever. If you like what we're doing and you want more coaching from any of us, then we're very happy to work with you and provide whatever you need. And we're gonna help you live your best life, so to speak.
Yep, I could not agree more.
Awesome. Well, do you have any other points here as far as exercise, why it's good, or anything else that you're doing or working on here?
I think the main thing to emphasize here is to get up and get moving. Let's break up that sedentary activity that we're feeling at home and just change your lifestyle around. Do little things like I said, parking further away in the parking lot, or taking the stairs to do something, or taking the stairs multiple times just to get that exercise in. It's simply just getting up and moving.
Agreed. And if you're doing all these things and you find there's something you really like and really enjoy, then do more of it. Like do what you like.
Exactly.
It's almost like it's recess time on the playground in third grade again. And if you like kickball, then do kickball. But in this case, it's with exercise. If you like biking, then ride a bike. If you like walking, then go on a walk. Do whatever you enjoy.
Yep, you're more likely to stick to that if you're enjoying what you're doing.
Awesome. Well, Kaylee, I appreciate your time a lot because I know your schedule is rather crazy right now.
Oh yes, but I appreciate you inviting me on here. It was great.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode. If you want to reach out and get in touch with us, you can follow us on Instagram at Brawn Body. You could also find us on Facebook at Brawn Body as well. And you can find us online at www.brawnbodytraining.com, or you can reach out to us via email or whatever works best for you. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your day.